So they had signed the last will and testament. Then the Kana massacre happened. This is the first Kana massacre because they did it again in 2006, actually. But in 1996, they did this. And then a couple of months later, bin Laden put out his first declaration of war called Declaration of War Against the Americans Occupying the Land of the Two Holy Places. Pretty subtle, right? And then on the first page, it says, it goes on and on about the Kana massacre. And he says, we'll never forget the severed heads and arms and legs of the children who were massacred in Kana. It was literally Naftali Bennett that pulled that trigger. And then at another time, he said, we are truly benefiting from from the September 11th attack and America's struggle in Iraq. Our struggle in Iraq? That's what you're benefiting from?
Yeah. He is not defensible. And again, I'll say this. I highly recommend people read his autobiography. He tells you exactly who he is. He doesn't realize he does, but he
By
does.
the way, one more important point here. Tucker Carlson has recently called for Netanyahu to step down or to be made to step aside by Trump kind of thing. And others are repeating that. And then I've seen other people criticizing, understandably, saying, oh man, you know what you don't want to do is just narrow everything down to Netanyahu. And if only we could get rid of this one guy, things would be so much better. When in fact, the problem is the Zionist project itself. Public opinion in Israel right now is completely insanely behind Netanyahu, beyond what you would want to believe could be true. And so these questions all still remain. Well, that's true. However, he is by light years. How many parsecs is a light year? Is it the other way around? by diameters of galaxies. Netanyahu is the most savvy and capable prime minister that Israel could possibly have. There is no one in the lineup who has the political levels of control and sophistication that this man can wield throughout the United States and Europe. Forget it. Naftali Bennett is nothing. Yair Lapid, all these guys, I could deal with Yair Lapid, okay? Give me Benny Gantz, any one of these blood-soaked killers, because none of them measure up to his capability in being the head of state of that nation and getting what he needs done. And I don't know what it is, but it's like, I remember, you ever read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich?
Yes, of
where
course.
Shearer, he describes Hitler as just like the most fanatical person on any issue who ever lived. Like no one has ever been as excited about anything as this guy was excited about getting up in the morning and getting power. And I was like, that's Netanyahu, dude. This guy is just, there's a lot more Hitler comparisons that are also apt for him, but just the absolute doggedness of the guy. Do you think he cares about anything else than wielding this power? You know, that's all he cares about.
I agree completely, Scott. The one place I would push back is I think he's completely lost his fastball, and I'll tell you why.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but he's still the baddest guy on the field by a mile, by forever.
But he has completely isolated the world. He has completely like that's the thing I would say about Netanyahu. Prior to 2023, Netanyahu, regardless of what you think of him as a person, it's just an objective statement as a skillful whatever.
Yeah.
He was a politician on the level of a William Jefferson Clinton. The guy was absolutely masterful in being able to use...
What time you say I need to leave here?
About 15 minutes.
Okay.
The guy was absolutely masterful on a Machiavellian level of acquiring power, holding on to it, and expanding it, regardless of what uses he was using that for. However, I think he has completely lost the ability to read a room at this point. I think that he has absolutely no clue that literally him showing his face anywhere is continuing to down the poll points of people supporting his nation. And the fact that after all this, he would come here and go to the Israeli consulate in New York and openly bring cameras in to capture him talking with American influencers about how to influence the public on social media for Israel's gains.
How to wage war against us.
Bro.
In fact.
Bro. Like the complete inability.
You're right. No. You're totally right about that. However, though, that's still the public, and that's important, but that's longer term. In terms of picking up the phone and making things happen in Washington,
yeah,
he's as dialed in, as linked into power, and with the instincts and the insight to know whose phone he has to ring, what he has to do to get what he wants. And I just think, yes, it's true. Israel would serve it would do itself a great Hasbara benefit by getting rid of him and giving us a nicer prime minister to look at or whatever. But the other edge of that sword is he would be, that footage of Zelensky at the UN meeting where everybody turns their back on him and he's just kind of standing around, you know what I mean? Doesn't know what to do.
Yep.
That's Naftali Bennett, which, by the way, Naftali Bennett caused September 11th. Just in case you don't know, he was part of Operation Grapes of Wrath in Lebanon, and he's the one who called in the artillery airstrike against the UN shelter and killed 106 women and children. And that was what it was. Well, first of all, it was Mohammed Atta and Ramzi bin al-Shibh signed their last will and testament and decided they wanted to join the jihad because of the invasion of Lebanon 3 days before. I think this was 3 or 4 days into the invasion. So they had signed the last will and testament. Then the Kana massacre happened. This is the first Kana massacre because they did it again in 2006, actually. But in 1996, they did this. And then a couple of months later, bin Laden put out his first declaration of war called Declaration of War Against the Americans Occupying the Land of the Two Holy Places. Pretty subtle, right? And then on the first page, it says, it goes on and on about the Kana massacre. And he says, we'll never forget the severed heads and arms and legs of the children who were massacred in Kana. It was literally Naftali Bennett that pulled that trigger, that ordered that strike and killed those people. And then that was Mohammed Atta was the lead hijacker on September 11th. And Ramzi bin al-Shibh was his buddy who helped organize the thing from Europe, but wasn't allowed in the country.
There's just no one to root for. It's just a bunch
of
people
over there.
Bunch of people to root against. I mean, it's just it's all evil.
Yeah.
The yin and the yang, it's all evil.
But you're right though. So there's the two sides of the coin, right? Is Netanyahu is so violent and murderous and horrible that he's undermined support for the project itself overall, seemingly, and whatever. He's made people very angry, at least. But if he's gone and replaced by somebody seemingly less psychopathic, that could be a PR boost for Israel. But then again, they would have a less capable leader getting their business done. And so combined with the actual consequences of the immediate consequences of the murderousness, I've got to go with a weaker other guy to do it. Even if it makes Israel look better overall, we're talking about looking better because we're killing fewer than a Waco massacre worth of people every day under the new guy, right? So that's the difference in the PR is whether they're mass murdering children every day, which if you look at antiwar.com, keep track of this every day, and it's always between like 50 and 130 or 50 and 100 and something, but it's usually right around like 80 to 90, 100 people. So roughly a large Waco massacre every single day over there. Every single day.
And like it's got to stop. Period. End of story. Before I get you out of here, you just wrote a book on Russia, Ukraine, and everything that happened there. Obviously,
also all Bill Clinton's fault. Yes.
Why is it all Bill Clinton's fault?
NATO expansion and the Balkan Wars.
So
then lots of other things, but that was his role, and the shock therapy as well. The rigging of the election in 1996 and the destruction of their economy. In the name of free market capitalism, they installed corrupt cronyism that ran the thing. I mean, they were already screwed transforming from communism to capitalism, but the Clintonite liberals made the very worst of it, basically, is what happened there. Then W. Bush tore up all the treaties, continued NATO expansion, did all the color-coded revolutions. Clinton started that. Bush continued it. Bush and Obama built the anti-ballistic missile systems in Romania and Poland that have dual-use launchers that can host Tomahawk missiles. And they continued to push toward integration of Ukraine into NATO. Obama overthrew the government of Ukraine again in 2014 and used a bunch of Hitler-loving Nazis to do it, and then launched a civil war. John Brennan went to Kiev and insisted that they launch the war in the East, which started the Civil War. And then, of course, they all framed Donald Trump for treason with Russiagate, so he was unable to solve any of this conflict in his first term, and instead gave in and escalated and gave weapons to Ukraine that helped make matters worse. And then Joe Biden, of course, is absolutely belligerent on the issue. And instead of negotiating in good faith, he tried to simply just act tough. And they thought they'd be cute and they would do like America did to the Soviet Union and Afghanistan in the 80s, just like the bin Ladenites did to America, and America did, George Bush and Barack Obama and Donald Trump did to America in Afghanistan in our era, is to bog them down and bleed them to bankruptcy, force them out the hard way, inflict a strategic defeat. That's why at the start of the war, even before the war and after the start of the war, there was no big diplomatic push to stop the thing. And as we know now, America and Britain intervened to prevent negotiations that were ending the war early. They could have ended the war in April of 2022. And America and Britain went in there and prevented them from ending the war because they wanted to keep it going because they don't give a goddamn about Ukraine, but they like seeing Russians killed. And they said it over and over and over again. We're killing Russians. No American soldiers are being killed, but we're killing Russians. We're sending them home in coffins. We're sending them home in body bags. We're destroying the Russian economy. We're bringing them to their knees. At the height of their excitement in 22, they said, this is going to bring about the fall of the Putin regime. We're going to stick it to them Ruskies good. That was their motivation for deliberately even provoking the war, or at least refusing to engage in the barest honest diplomacy to try to prevent it. I think their plan A was to warn them, you better not. But plan B was not negotiate. Plan B was, we're going to, and this is, by the way, 3 months after America's absolute humiliating, disgraceful withdrawal and defeat in Afghanistan. And they got the word Afghanistan in their mouths for why we need to do this.
Change the narrative
again. Yep. And then, but replicate what we did to the Soviet Union in the 80s in Afghanistan. Never you mind what we just did to ourselves there again. Or the consequence, the fact that we were dealing with the consequences of the blowback from the last time we've been over there. Right. And so what do we expect to happen here? They told the New York Times, they said, you know what, honestly, we don't know the first thing about defeating an insurgency, but we sure know how to back one. And so that's what we're going to do. And so, yeah, they think they're smart, but they're really not. And so, yes, the book is Provoked. This one is called Enough Already, Time to End the War on Terrorism.
We'll have the links to both of them down below. So make a note of that, Deef, if we can.
And forgive me for my shameless plugs, but I got to get rid of those things. And I busted my ass to put them together for you. I think you'll really get something out of it, honestly. Yeah. So that one's Enough Already. It's Jimmy Carter through Donald Trump in the Middle East. And then Provoked is H.W. Bush through Joe Biden in Eastern Europe.
Love it.
And the neocons throughout. Russiagate, Ukrainian Nazis, Balkan Wars, and all the color-coded revolutions and everything you need to know.
Scott Horton, you are fun to talk to, man. You know, you're an encyclopedia of a lot of things. I appreciate you going back and forth on some hard topics today. We will have to do this again.
Thank you very much for having me. It's
all right, everyone, check out those books. We'll have those linked down below. And
you know what? One more thing.
Yeah.
Very soon after this comes out, within a few weeks at least, we'll be launching the Scott Horton Academy of Foreign Policy and Freedom, which I mentioned earlier. It's like Tom Wood's Liberty Classroom, and he built it for me. And it's courses by me walking you through the Middle East wars, essentially the extremely long version of a lot of what we've talked about here today, as well as Provoked and all of the Eastern European thing and the lead up to Ukraine and the Ukraine war. And then plus it's a bunch of other great experts on a lot of other great stuff. And so if you go to scotthortonacademy.com, you can put your email address in there. And if you put your email address in there, then you'll be the first to know when we're ready to launch. And it's really going to be something cool. So
thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.